All right, good morning, Pablo. Here's the basic demonstration of RobotMaster. Um, you start off with your model in NX or whatever system you're using, but it's either going to be Pro or NX. First, I'll show you the basic configuration. The main thing you want is your datum CCs to be at 0, wherever 0 is going to be on your robot and how you're structuring your robot assembly and fixture. In this case, it'll be on top of the rotary table. So 0 will be here. This will sit on top of the rotary table, and that's where we'll rotate about. Um, so from here, I will just take and you export the entire model, the whole assembly as a parasolid, and it'll bring it in with that correct work coordinate. From there, it comes into Mastercam, and this is how it would show up. So I've already created some basic tool paths. So if I go to the airfoil, you'll see these are my basic tool path. So if I go to airfoil, and I can run through, and you can see it's staying normal to the part all the time. So some features you want to keep in mind, like when you're if you're going to use, if they're going to program this in Charlotte and you're getting models from Eureka, every one of these nodes is a point, and if you have too many points, it can really slow down your robot, especially in the transition area. So you'll see here I have 5 points, and that seems to work just fine at the robot. Keeps a nice smooth flow. You don't want to have 120 points going around because it'll try to maintain those, and it has a tough time keeping up with it. Plus, when you're going to edit a string, you want to be able to select, say, from here to here and change those feed rates. You don't have to select, here it's just 5 points in that section. You don't want to change 30 points. Just makes life a little bit easier. Um, in the parameters, show you some basic functionality. All right, so you have your tool, which keep in mind this is for machining, so most of it doesn't mean anything, but like your feed rate, start everything off at like 300 millimeters per second, and keep everything in metric. Makes life a lot easier. Um, and that's about all you have to change. Your plunge rate, your feed rate, and your retract rate. Keep them all the same. You can play around if you want to, but we usually just modify them at the robot. And if I go into cut pattern, um, this is how I'm maintaining my tool axes in X and Y. And I have some advanced features, so extend and trim. So what this allows me to do is if I want to extend my tool path up this way, then I just change my tangential extensions 25 millimeters, so it goes up. So if I change this to, let's just say 50 and 50, I say okay, and I'll update it, and now they're higher. Um, and I can also you can also extend them out this way, obviously too. Um, Now because this is tapered, it gets a little bit. Um, I talked to Pablo about this, how I will create a separate surface so that the curve here and the curve here are the same width, so that I don't have this tapering effect. But anyway, and you can change, you can set your start points. You have tool axis control. So I'm using a 5-axis, and if I want to change my lead or tilt angle, I can do that. I can show you that here. Let's just do a quick. So right now it is normal to depart in X and about Y. It's normal, it's flat, right? And to that surface. And then it obviously follows it about Z. If that's okay. Now we'll go in here, parameter. Oh, wrong one. All right. So let's just say I want to change my lead angle to 30. And this would be more like if you're doing a platform, but just to show you because it's easier to see it on the airfoil. Okay. So now my angle, Sturt's angle is down, which this would be handy. So if I'm going to come up and machine or coat this surface, and I'm going back and forth this way, I can adjust that angle so that my tool can get up and get the shroud area. And let's see what else we have here. Change that back to 0. Extend trim, you can round corners. Select your start point. Here's your cut tolerance. That will determine the number of points you have on your surface. So a straight line has 2 points, beginning and end, but you're dealing with curves. So across this area here, if I increase this tolerance to 1, then instead of it putting points every millimeter or whatever, trying to hold whatever tolerance you put in here, if I have it at 1, then this gap it'll go up to 1 millimeter gap before it creates the next point. So for coding, that's perfectly adequate. And then here's where you change your step over. So I change this to 10. Refresh. You can see now it's wide so that you can make some real quick changes on the fly. You can also break these surfaces up. So if you want one little strip that you want to slow down, speed up, that's easy enough to do. Change that back to 5. And I'll just show you if I change this to 0.1. All right, now all right, so now I added considerably more points, I believe. Which again, all depends on how much curvature you have. Let's see if I go to 5, what it does. I usually just keep it at 1. I haven't had to play with it too much. Actually didn't change it as much as I thought, but anyways, that's how you handle that. And you play around with it, and you can get it to do whatever you need it to do for however many points you want. Because I can actually put a minimum quantity in there too. Here again, here's where I'm doing the platform, and I have it at an angle, and got in here for? Okay. I'm not created this program a long time ago, so I'm not sure how I constructed that, but anyways, you can see I'm coming off this surface and extending down. But let me just show you how using NX, the one nice feature is because NX is parametric. Um, whatever I do here, I can always go back in here and um, make changes on the fly. So, and I can keep track of all my changes. So if I want to, say for example, this offset, it's at 30 now. I want to change that to 35. Then it just populates it. Now, if I do it in Mastercam or if you're doing it using the Eureka software, it's not parametric, so you're gonna have to redo that whole surface. Here, I can just extend it and re-execute it. So what I'm doing here is trying to make this an even surface. So the spacing from here to here is 35 millimeters. If I'm using a 5 millimeter step over, uh, it'll create a clean toolpath without a bunch of funky movements. So all I do is create my surface. I go back into the model assembly because my work coordinates is now coming from here. I don't want it from wherever this was created. And file, export the parasite, select it, and then I throw it into here, and which I've already done. But so now I go back into Mastercam. All right, file, merge, select that object, so it threw it right up front here. Say okay. Hold on, Matthew's interrupted me. Son of